Hello and welcome to the University of Alabama's Education Abroad Workshop for the Gilman Scholarship. The Gilman Scholarship is the largest undergraduate scholarship program supporting U.S. students of high financial need wanting to participate in a study abroad or international internship program. In this workshop, we are going to talk about how to prepare an application for the scholarship program in hopes to winning the award. The United States State Department supports and funds the Gilman program, so it's important to understand what the purpose of the State Department. The State Department wants to promote mutual understanding between the people in the United States and the people of other countries. So in particular, they're using the Gilman Scholarship Program to expand access to students with high financial need. Oftentimes, funding or money is a barrier for students. And so the Gilman Scholarship supports students and gives them the opportunity of mutual exchange abroad. So recipients can receive up to $5,000 to use towards program costs related to potentially tuition, fees, room and board, books, for any of these following terms: fall, spring, summer, winter, or academic year. Applicants who are studying a critical need language in a country where that language is predominantly spoken can apply for a supplemental award up to an additional $3,000 for a total of $8,000. So this list has a current list of critical languages, but make sure to check the website to see which languages are being offered under the critical need language list. There are many benefits in winning the Gilman Scholarship, along with networking opportunities, ambassador programs, seminar, and workshops. But the one that I want to particularly highlight is listed in the first bullet. So alumni of the Gilman program are eligible for 12 months of non-competitive eligibility hiring status within the federal government. Essentially, it is a benefit that allows Gilman alumni to jump to the front of the applicant line when applying for certain federal jobs. It doesn't guarantee them a job, but it makes it much easier for them to be hired. So now we're going to move on to the eligibility for the scholarship. To be eligible for the Gilman Scholarship, an applicant must be a U.S. citizen, an undergraduate student in good standing, receiving the federal Pell Grant, applying for a credit-bearing study abroad program, so you have to be earning academic credit, in a country where the overall travel advisory level is at a 1, 2, or 3. Some really exciting news is that the Gilman program no longer has a minimum number of length to be in the country. You can apply for your Gilman Scholarship Program if your program is a week long or a year long. If the country where you choose to study abroad or intern is at a level 3 or 4 only due to COVID at the time of application, the Gilman program will still review your application. But if a student becomes a recipient and are selected to win the scholarship, and the destination is still at a level 4 at the time the program starts, then the recipient will be required to change their program or defer the reward. One exciting thing about the pandemic is that it has allowed the Gilman program to become more flexible. So virtual programs where a student stays domestically United States but participates in a program virtually around the world is now eligible. So that could include international internships or intensive language programs outside of the U.S. As part of the Gilman Scholarship, there is a sub-award called the Gilman McCain Award. And this award provides $5,000 for child dependents of active duty service members to study or intern abroad in credit-bearing programs. Applications are absolutely being accepted. Besides being a child of a dependent active duty service member and having any type of Title IV federal financial aid, students have to participate in a program that is a minimum 3 weeks or 21 days in length. So now let's talk about the application process, and this is where our Education Abroad office is here and ready to support. Gilman likes to say that the application process takes about 11 hours. Don't worry, those 11 hours aren't just you sitting in front of the computer applying for the scholarship. Really, those 11 hours count for a lot of different things. So number one, you're going to have to spend time researching and applying for a study abroad program. You're going to spend time developing, maybe outlining your essays, taking them to a writing center, working with an editor. You're going to have to spend some time uploading an unofficial transcript. And at the University of Alabama, you can go through your MyBama portal and click on the student tab, and you will be able to download an unofficial transcript that you can then upload into the Gilman portal. You will also spend some time selecting some advisors within the Education Abroad office and working on making sure that your application is set. So that's the first part of your role of your student application. The second part of your application is the advisor certifications. So after you, the student, submits your application, we come in and certify your application. The study abroad advisor makes sure that your program is actually credit-bearing, that you've been accepted, that you've applied for this particular program and it's a legit program. The financial aid advisor is certifying that you are receiving federal aid, including the Pell Grant. They're also certifying any other scholarships that you will be receiving. So this is where I'd like to spend the most time talking about the various essays that are required. In a Gilman Scholarship, the first essay is quite important. It is the Statement of Purpose essay. It is where you were allowed to really tell the reader who you are. It is your personal interview essay. This is where you want to really focus on connecting a story. You want to talk about you as a student. You want to talk about why you were interested in this particular program abroad or what piqued your interest in that particular country, what kind of goals you want to do while you're abroad, and how participating in the study abroad program can help you in your future. It's really important to talk about challenges, if you have any, because sometimes it just adds more substance to your essay, and it also provides the reader a better insight into who you are. I like to use as a tidbit that anytime you're applying for a scholarship, regardless of it being the Gilman Scholarship Program, make sure you pay attention to what the scholarship likes to highlight as impact. So the Gilman program's impact states that 47% of students who have won the Gilman Award are first-generation college students. That means that their parents did not graduate from a 4-year institution. It also states that 65% of the Gilman Award winners have or represent 65% represent racial or ethnic minority groups. So if you identify with a racial or ethnic minority group, make sure that you mention that in your essay. So as you structure your statement of purpose essay, really focus on the story and why you're picking that particular program in that particular country and how it may make sense with your major or your minor and your future goals. I'd like to use one of my students as an example. He came to the Gilman workshop and was an advertising and public relations major with a minor in fashion merchandising. So we picked a particular program in Paris, France, that not only allowed him to continue also his second minor in French language, but Paris is one of the major capitals of fashion in the world. So it really made sense for him to be there. He wanted to, in the future, work with a French designer, and so this study abroad program really aligned to what he wanted to do in the future. Some of his challenges that he identified was that he was late in starting his undergraduate degree. After he left high school, he actually settled in his hometown and worked at a luxury brand, but knew that he always wanted to come back and start his undergraduate degree. So I think he might have been 24 or 25 years old when he started. And so he was, doing undergraduate as a non-traditional student. And so it was really interesting for him to mention that in his program. So think about how your story makes sense and how you're picking your international program will help you in your future career goals. I failed to mention that first essay is 7,000 characters, including spaces, so maybe a page and a half to 2 pages. These essays don't have to be very long, but they have to be very intentional. So the second essay is the community impact essay, maximum 3,000 characters. So this essay focuses on building mutual understanding. Remember, the purpose of the State Department wants Americans to become engaged with others overseas. So in this particular essay, you ask what it means to be a U.S. citizen abroad and how will you seek meaningful opportunities to become engaged, and how do you make meaningful. I really like how the Gilman program provides some questions to help you set up your essays and prompt. But this building mutual understanding essay is one that I like to, it sounds maybe difficult when you first think about it, but really when you came to the University of Alabama, you had to create mutual understandings. You had to hopefully increase your network and make friends. And so this is basically how you would do abroad. If this was me and I was applying for the Gilman Scholarship, I would really focus on some areas that increase my interaction. So number one is food. I am a big foodie. I really like to try local fairs. I like to go to neighborhood markets and really eat authentic food and learn how to cook and authentic food or prepare authentic tea or drinks or beverages from that country. So that's one way or an avenue how I could seek mutual understanding. Another avenue that I like to do is sports. So, can you join or could I join a sports club? Could I join maybe playing rugby, a sport that I've never played before, or cricket, which is mostly a sport that's really not played in the United States. Could I join a cricket team and get connected to locals and have mutual understanding? So however you increase your network or make friends on the Alabama campus is potentially how you can talk about your mutual understandings abroad. The third essay is, again, maximum 3,000 characters, but I think a really smart essay because Gilman understands that the best promotion for the scholarship program is through students' voices and their stories. So all winners of the Gilman are required to complete a follow-on service project. So on this service project, you're basically going to talk about how you won the scholarship and how are you going to promote it among your networks. How are you going to inspire others to study abroad? Are you going to do it on your campus or your home community? And you're asked to design a plan of action. Within that plan of action, you've got to be specific. Is your project going to be feasible? And it's got to be detailed. It doesn't have to be major or huge, but you want to be able to complete it when you return from your abroad experience. So Gilman has a really great resource on their website where they give you some ideas and prompts. But at the University of Alabama, we've had students do a couple of things. They may have created a PowerPoint presentation and they shared their study abroad experience with maybe their fraternity or sorority, potentially their student groups or their dorms. We've had students create brochures about their experience and share it with others, or create websites about their experience and share it with others intentionally. We've had students use really creative ways to promote their experience, and we had a student put up beautiful pictures and a visual kind of collection of her experience at the FERG during a tabling event. And she had information about the Gilman Scholarship on her table, and it allowed for really interesting interaction with people who came to learn about her experience, and she was able to tell them about the scholarship program. So you have to be very specific and very detailed, and this program has to be feasible. It has to be something that you can complete. We've actually had students who do presentations back to their home high schools, maybe an Arabic class or a French class in high school, or an English teacher or a history teacher in high school, and they went back and talked about the program to their high school students. So there is a fourth essay, but it is not required for everyone. It is only required for those students who are trying to get the additional critical needs supplement. Remember, there is a list of critical need languages that are on the Gilman website and on a previous slide. This is not Spanish or French. Those, unfortunately, are not on the critical language list. Within this essay, down to 2,000 characters, so we're within a page or less than a page. This is where you have the opportunity to talk about your interest in this language and how it came to be that you're interested in it, and how do you think it's going to help you in the future. So I really appreciate that Gilman likes to talk about how students are selected. And remember, they're going to be investing in you, so they want to make sure that students are making proper decisions to find study abroad programs that align to their interest, to their goals, academically, and maybe their future careers. So one of the biggest kind of selection criteria out there is the impact of the program and the destination on the student's academic and career trajectory and directory. So does this international program align with what they want to do? If you are a chemical engineering major and all of a sudden you want to do a photography program in Florence, there really may not be an immediate connection to you being a chemical engineer in the future. But if you are a mechanical engineering student who is interested in going to France and studying the French language, because upon your finishing up your degree at the University of Alabama, you're interested in working on Formula One cars, and in a particular French Formula One racing team, then that particular French program is actually aligned to your major and your future goals. So the second criteria is that community impact abroad. Are you not going to be just American tourists hanging out with Americans and not engaging with the local community? But are you going to do something meaningful and put yourself out there in meaningful opportunities? And so it could be that you're doing an internship, or that you're volunteering with a local NGO. How are you getting connected with the local community and the local environment? Academic preparedness is also a selection criteria. As you notice, this doesn't say that you have to have a specific GPA to win the Gilman Award, but you do have to be in good standing, because Gilman understands that there are a lot of differences and maybe stressors in educational systems abroad. So they're not going to send you abroad if you're not kind of doing well in your home institution in the United States. And so if you were like me as a freshman student who came in and had a really bad freshman first semester GPA, but since then maybe you've hopefully increased your GPA or gotten good standing, maybe you had to change your major, that is an academic challenge that you can talk about. And you can talk about how you overcame that and why that will look like that in the transcript that is submitted. So make sure you kind of think about that. I really like this particular selection criteria because remember that the Gilman Scholarship is interested in expanding access. So are you a member of a historically underrepresented population that usually doesn't tend to study abroad? It might be a member of a minority group or minoritized population. You might be a non-traditional student. You might represent a member of the LGBTQ community. You might be a student with a potential disability that you have to work through at the university. You might be a young parent or a student who works a lot. There's a lot of different types of students. So if you represent either a diversity of background or diversity of experience, right? Are you interested in going that particular country, let's say Japan, because you are really big in animation and you had taken some animation classes in high school that were really focused on Japanese artists and cartoons? Maybe that's a really unique experience that you have that can help lend to your story as to why you're choosing Japan as a future location for your study or intern abroad. And lastly, the selection criteria for those who are completing the critical language needs scholarship and essay is how are you going to stay committed to the proficiency and improving that particular language? So the dates and timelines and deadlines are really important. There is always 2 cycles in a Gilman scholarship. So there is a cycle, the blue cycle, that always opens in October for programs that start in December to the following October. So you can apply for or by the October deadline, and it's always the first Tuesday of October. And you will be notified by December whether you won the award, and your study abroad program could start that spring or that summer. So this is really a great opportunity for students who are thinking about studying abroad in the summer. I always encourage students to apply in the October deadline, even though it might seem a little early. You know by December whether you've gotten the award, and you have some money up front to start paying for some costs that may start incurring. For like instance, you will have to start paying for a summer program in the spring. You might have to buy a plane ticket 2 or 3 months prior. If your program leaves in May, you might have to buy a plane ticket in February. So you will already have the award in hand and be able to use the Gilman Scholarship funding to do so. The reason why I also like to tell students for summer programs to apply during October, because if you don't win the award, the Gilman actually has a second application cycle. And that cycle opens in January and closes in March of every year. So for that cycle, for the March cycle, it is open for programs that will start that May all the way up until the following April. So essentially that takes care of summer programs, fall programs, and spring programs. If you're in the March application cycle, students will usually be notified that they won the award by May. So sometimes I like to tell students, if you're using the Gilman Scholarship for a summer program, and you're in this March cycle, I would use winning the award as your plan B, because you will be already required to make some payments before you know that your scholarship was awarded. But if you're in the March cycle, in the March application cycle, it's great for fall and following spring programs because you'll know that you won the award in the early summer. And again, if you apply in the October cycle and you don't win it in December, turn around, let's retool your application and submit it sometime in January to March. So lastly, a couple of application tips. You really have to work on creating a compelling story that ties your past, present, and future. And this is where the Education Abroad Office at the University of Alabama loves to support and help students with their story. We can ask you some questions to help you think about how you want to frame your application essays and maybe help you identify some study abroad programs that are right up your alley. I can't stress this enough. Start your application early. This is not an application that you want to start 24 hours prior to its deadline. It is really something that you need to work on to be very intentional, and you want to give it some time. When you think about your follow-on service project, think about your kind of local community and your local schools, and that's kind of a really important thing. And also I like to mention that be very detailed in the discussions and in your essays. Maybe you want to bring up some facts and figures. Maybe you want to do some pre-meetings and if you're going to be working on a follow-on service project at your high school, mention the teacher's name, mention that you've already had a conversation with them, and mention maybe some of their ideas if they're interested in doing so. So one of the last things that I want to leave you with is if you don't apply, you'll never get it. So there's about 3,500 winners of the Gilman Scholarship every year. So 1 in 3 students usually win the Gilman Scholarship, which I think are amazing odds. But even to some locations that are non-traditional and study abroad, could be Latin America, Africa, or some of the countries in Asia, sometimes it could be a 50% chance of winning the scholarship. So please, please, please submit the application because you never know whether you will earn it or not. So we are here to help in any particular way to support your efforts with the Gilman Scholarship, whether it's helping you find a study abroad program or helping you review your essays or helping you come up with your compelling story. We are here to help and support. Our Gilmans have been great, and so we have one really kind of defined mode of communication. We use this gilman.ua.ea Gmail, and it is managed by student workers who are past Gilman winners, and they help review and edit essays and get and set up appointments with maybe the advisors or them to work with you all to help you with this project. So also make sure you come by our office. We're located in 144 Baby Comer, or visit our website at studyabroad.ua.edu. We have lots of information to support you. Lastly, make sure you go on Gilman's website. They have amazing resources, amazing workshops, webinars. They have a great team to contact if you have any specific questions. They have a wonderful set of FAQs. They really do a lot to support students in making sure that it is clear on how to complete the application. And also you want to be tuned into their social media. It might be that an application is extended, and so make sure you follow them on social media in case some of that important information comes up. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you and seeing your submitted and completed Gilman application.